So, episode, what number? It's been too long to remember.
Yeah, something like 12.
Okay.
Maybe 13. Maybe 11.
Alrighty, so what is it today?
Well, we've been talking a lot about the happenings of the world and how stressful all of that is.
Something's always happening.
Yes. Something stressful is always happening. Something stressful is always happening, so we've been talking about that a lot. But yeah, people are stressed out. And we wanted to talk about...
What do you do when you're stressed out?
Identify the cause of stress.
Do you know the cause of stress?
Yeah.
Is it always the same thing?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Podcast over. No.
What is it?
Well, the stress happens...
Make it as simple as possible.
Well, the stress happens in the brain, in the comings and goings of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a place that exists that isn't stressful.
Okay.
Anyway, I should be asking you these questions.
Alright, so where do you want to start?
Well, do we want to talk about what's going on in the world and what's causing the stress for people? What is the cause of stress for people?
Yeah, you want to?
Yeah.
So, the interesting thing about answering that question, you can answer it in a way that some people will immediately get and other people won't get it.
Mm-hmm.
If you know a place, or if you know how to operate in a specific way, right now there is no stress. There is no cause of stress. The level of stress that you experience would be totally, absolutely natural. You wouldn't even call it stress. If you know how to operate that way, then the answer is very simple. Grasping. Grasping is the cause of stress. Grasping at anything. Right now you have an immediate experience of life as it's happening. And as life is happening, it is instantly fading away in the same moment. Experience itself, which is totally present. And if you're looking directly at that, you will see that you can't actually grasp anything. And because that's a fact, the thing within you that is attempting to grasp at things and generating illusions because of that grasping, that is the source of stress. Because in fact, there is no grasping. In fact, reality does not grasp itself. As a whole, there is no grasping. But to identify as the individual, as the being, the personality again, that is the grasping. Mm-hmm. To then identify with that means you have denied what you really are. And so the result of that is stress. Okay, so that's very simple. Grasping. So then non-grasping, functioning beyond grasping,
Mm-hmm.
which is a real mechanism. That means it's in action. It's a function of your being in action. Another way of saying that is it's a way of being, non-grasping. And then all stress, any stress whatsoever, any present experience would be relinquished, released, not grasped at. Another way of saying that is you don't get involved in anything that happens. But that's very deep, meaning you could think that what I'm meaning by this is the current events that are happening in the world. Okay, that's one interpretation of it. Don't get involved in the current events that are happening in the world. Okay, your stress will diminish, sure. But how about the stress of your psychology, the stress of worry, or the stress of anxiety, the stress of believing that you're going to die and experiencing that, believing that you were born and that you're going to die? That is a different kind of stress. Believing yourself to be is a form of stress. And to approach that problem, you have to learn about perception. You have to study and observe the nature of perception itself. What does it mean to perceive yourself to be here? Is if you look very closely at it, is the fact that you believe yourself to be present here the result of a process of perception occurring and a grasping at that perception? So what happens if there is no grasping at perception? What happens to one's sense of personal self? That's a different question, but a very important one for anyone who's very serious about inquiry into stress and ending of suffering. What is the cause of suffering? Grasping at what? What is grasping? What could grasp? These things can't be told to you. They can be told to you, but that has no effect. Unless you identify, observe the mechanism, the function of life, the function of it, the functioning of it, the happening of it, which is intimately personal, absolutely within your area of study. That's what you're supposed to be looking at, studying, observing, looking into its nature. There is, at a very surface level, a lot of psychology, a lot of psychological processes going on, including memory. In those memories are various labels and forms of identity and past and so-called trauma and fears, anxieties. Are you identified with that? Is there an identity in that? Is that your identity? The bundle of memory and operation of psychology. Are you identified with that? What is operating at a deeper level beneath the psychology? Can you see anything there, or is the whole of your identity in memory and name? Do you have an awareness of a much deeper, broader operation of life?
Yeah.
And are you connected to that? And can you observe how that is operating without self? Has no identity, has no sense of self. Thoughts of self don't exist there. So I don't know who I'm talking to with regards to answering the question. Where do you want to go with it? Where are you at in all that stuff? And how does that relate to stress? And did I answer the question?
I'm slowly finding my way out of that identity.
You need to probably talk a little bit louder for the camera.
I'm slowly finding my way out of that identity. Definitely still get caught up in it.
What does it have to do with stress?
Well, it's stressful to identify with all these things. Being a daughter, being a partner, being a friend, being a person that's separate from everything else, that believes it's separate from it. Being a thing.
Being anything.
thinks it's separate from everything else and thinks it's alone in all of that as well.
If you take a
That's
bowl,
stressful.
if you take a fish bowl of water, it's full of water contained in that cell, and then you take that water and you tip it into a river, where is the water now? Everywhere.
Yeah, who knows?
It's returned to everything. One body of water. It is one body of water which covers the planet. There is a mode of operation, and that's when I say the word mechanism. That's because it's a form of functioning. It's mechanical. It's a mechanical process, although it's not. Let me explain that. It could be seen as a mechanical process, but it's connected to the immaterial parts of your being, the non-matter parts of you, the parts that you can't see or hear, the invisible part of you. So it can't be mechanical because that's invisible. Anyway, that's a little bit technical. There is a way of operating in which that fishbowl of water does not exist, and there is only the whole of the experience. The water that was in the fishbowl is still present, but it is no longer confined to a fishbowl. What that means in terms of relating it back to the person and stress is if you grasp at perception in your daily life, you are sustaining the illusion of your separateness, your individualness.
Mm-hmm.
You are believing yourself to be the psychological process that is occurring only inside the brain of one body that has specific memories and specific labels. So it is totally individual and alone and isolated in one brain. But outside of that is the whole body of the cosmos, alive as one. So there is a way of operating within oneself, if you want to call it that. We have to call it something because we're talking about it. Within one's own experience, there is a way of operating that does not confine any water to any fishbowl. And it sees that the operation of the whole of life is one. And so that one's experience of that is totally natural. Whatever is occurring is the operation of the whole body of life. What do you want to say about it? What opinion do you want to have of it? And why would you bother? Why would you want to control that? It's the operation of the whole of life, which includes everything you can see and hear and feel and taste and touch as one living being. Present experience of life unfolding for you is the unfolding of life itself. Why would you want to control that? There is no problem with that from that point of view. There is no issue. If it is stress, it is stress, so what? But in all honesty, you wouldn't call it stress, and it's nothing like what you're referring to when you're saying the stress of the identity. None of that stress is in there. The stress, if you want to call it a stress, it is a natural present experience, which includes pain and a body that gets hungry, and that's a form of stress. That's natural stress.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're referring or considering the stress of the person who generates stress because they're believing an illusion, a lie, then none of that stress is in the reality or in the body of reality. That's not there. So then we learn how to operate in a way that does not grasp at personal present experience, in which there is no I and no self arising in that. Now I might be going a little bit deep here, so you need to kind of talk back at me and keep me on a certain level.
Sounds about right.
What does that mean to you? And how does it relate to, where do you want to go with it with regards to helping people transcend stress? And if we want to reference current events and what's going on, and why is that so significant in the question? Current events.
Well, because current events are stressful for people. We've got a lot going on with like the governments around the world. There's cost of living crisis, housing crisis. Like there's so many stresses in the world for people. So to
Who is responsible for that? Who is responsible for that stress?
if it is stressing someone out, if all of that stuff is stressing someone out, or
No.
who's responsible for the stress?
Who's responsible for the stress?
I don't know.
Hmm.
There's not one single person, is it?
No, definitely not. It is the process of life, ultimately, the process of life, which means us. We're responsible for it. Now, we're also responsible we're also responsible for what we do about it. Can you totally detach from it, for a start? That's a question, very important question. Can you totally detach and disappear and dissolve into your own private universe? Where, and I don't mean to be like cliche here, but where there is not a single problem or concern. And I mean that to the deepest level. There is a total serenity of inherent oneness of all life in which everything is perfect, literally. Can you access this space? That's one question. If not, why not? If so, fantastic. If so, and I mean it, if you can, all right, we can come back and get to work on some of the bullshit that's going on here, some of the absolute idiocy. But don't get too bogged down in that if you don't know how to get out of it. That's important. You find peace, no peace. Truly, deeply no peace, at which point you can come back and help.
So you can't help if you're attached to everything.
You can help in certain ways, but you cannot help in the deepest possible way. The deepest possible way is in transcending identity itself, the identity of the self, which is tied to the current state of human evolution of consciousness here on this planet. This is the same problem that we're considering here. You personally, where are you at? Must you learn to transcend the suffering of yourself? Wonderful. Learn to detach. Detach from the operation of the self within oneself. That means meditation. That means a very, very sincere, prolonged effort in regards to watching. In order to begin to identify the mechanism of the self and how it operates, at which point it can be witnessed that one is actually an outside observer of that, and that's a whole illusion. All right, great, so you can get out. Now, what are we talking about with regards to global unrest? The current level of evolution of consciousness here up to this planet has been up to this moment on this planet, up to this point, has been and is insane. Why is it insane? Because there is this mechanism of the illusion, this function of the illusion, the illusory identity in the brain of the individual, which is a lie. It's there, but it's not what you are. To believe that thing is to be fearful and be terrified of death and anxious for property and grasping of things and fear of opinion, of judgment and all the rest of it. To believe that, to believe the identity to be you, is to fall into that and then sustain that. That mechanism is what has been ruling the show down here with regards to law and order and regulation of society, that insane entity, that lie. And so we are witnessing very clearly the operation of that mechanism in society at large, and it is warmongering. It is hateful, it is terrified, it is possessive, it is manipulative, greedy, all of the corruption of life. It pursues that corruption. It is sustained, that it is that corruption sustained. It is the cause of that corruption. It is one and the same. The corruption in society is because of this wrong belief in the individual identity. It is one and the same. So that is just the external material reflection of that inward process. But because our level of consciousness up to now has been sustaining that process, and society has been built and sustained as a result of that process. So it is hell for you.
Yeah.
Congratulations, you have generated anxiety and stress collectively. Good job. All right, so wake up to that fact. Now what do you want to do? You want to do it differently. You want to do it differently.
I need to.
You want to transcend what you have. You want to transcend what you have, as of current, been able to achieve with regards to the operation of consciousness here. You want to evolve. And that's what you get encouraged to do when you want to evolve. All right, step up. So what do? How do you do it? What's the mechanism that overrules that operation and brings you into a new paradigm? Can be simplified in a single sentence of about 5 words.
What are the 5 words?
Get out of your head. That entity, that supposed individual person, is sustained in the thought, the psychological process, sustained by memory and attachment to memories and identification with the label of daughter and etc., etc. Through family connections, traditions and culture, all of that is sustained in the human brain.
Yeah, passed on.
If you made every single human being on the planet brain dead today, that would be the end of religion, the end of culture, the end of memory, the end of association with label and identity. So what does that tell you about culture and religion and all of these things? They are only sustained in the human brain.
Right.
Okay, so what do? You get out of your head. The absolute core function of all mystical discipline. All mystical discipline. Get out of the head. Cultivate the ability to witness the present moment so intensely, and various elements of the present moment. For example, could be sound, could be a particular sight, it could be overriding the mechanism of psychology and intentionally holding to a single thought, or intentionally counting 1, 2. To intentionally count within one's head requires an absolute focus of presence. Otherwise you go off track and you start thinking about all sorts of other things. It could be a form of yoga, it could be a form of kung fu, it could be a walking meditation, it could be just a simple sitting and watching. And in that space, which becomes a process, although it is immediate and absolutely right now happening, that practice is very present now experienced. In the same way that putting a flame underneath... Are you on track?
Yeah, I got distracted by the dog.
In the same way that putting a flame beneath a pot of water is an immediate effect, if you leave it there for an hour, it will have had a different effect. So, like watching and deep meditation, okay, you do it now, but can you sustain it? At which point it becomes a process of, well, it initiates transformation, complete transformation of the person, the being. There is a total, eventually, an intimate reawakening to and a reconnection with the all. That's it. Which alleviates the stress. The stress that was generated by the illusory, the investment in the illusion, is overwhelmed by the all, the presence of the all. And in that, one can see that there is only naturalness, there has only ever been naturalness. This life that is unfolding is evolving at its own pace, and through that evolution it goes through infinite number of experiences, transformations, of which the current economy and society and experience here is just one current iteration of an infinite number of transformations that life goes through. You are witness to all of that. And what that leads to for the person is total relaxation. Surrender, once again being taken over by the whole of life, which only can see clearly and doesn't have a problem, and quite frankly has nothing to say. In absolute truth, it has nothing to say. It does not need to speak, because it is beyond all concern. And that life is everywhere. And if you want to get into the nitty-gritty of the specifics of the current model of experience here, of what's going on the planet, there are great forces at work within the human species to deny and hide and control. And so they are subject to that world of isolation and stress and confusion. That's it. You can be a part of that if you want to. Or you can watch it from afar and be fascinated by it. Or you can be totally ignorant of it and don't get involved and just live your own life, wandering freely through this experience of being a human here. It's up to you. It kind of kills the questions, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, that's what you say. It's like the same thing. It's the same thing to be said.
Of course
kind
it
of
is.
over and over again, but in...
All right, so the fundamental point of this kind of communication is, have you grasped that yet? Have you grasped that that is the most important problem you will ever admit that you've got?
Yeah, I know it's my most important
You
problem.
do?
Yeah.
All right, are you clear on how to be operating in order to address this problem that you have? Because that's the next step. That's the first point to get across to people is, have you yet identified that this is the most important problem that you'll ever have? Is the problem of wrong identity and suffering where you're at? Because if it's not, there's other things we need to talk about, potentially, if you have questions. But if that's the problem, all right, where are you at on the solution, which I've just explained?
That doth be the problem, and with regards to the solution, as you say, it can happen immediately right here, but that is a process over time.
This is why we say you must learn to sustain it.
Yeah, like it needs to be maintained and practiced. So the practice is there, but the stress does seep back in, and the identity does continue to, like it deepens. Like you go through these levels and you realize all of a sudden there's a deeper grasp on something, and then that gets released. And then there's like a deeper grasp of something, and then that gets released. So it's like this slow releasing of all the grasping.
Is that process separate from the world?
No.
So then then it's totally natural. And only there because the whole world is there. That process of awakening is one with the world. You think you're waking up on your own.
Right.
No. Collective.
It's very
Everywhere.
easy to think you're alone, but
you
you're
think-
not. Yeah.
Because you think you're a fishbowl.
Yeah,
but
you
you're not.
think
You're
an
the whole ocean.
individual. Yeah.
That's the trick. That's the trickiest bit. That's the trickiest bit to identify. The process is self-sustained in and of itself. You're not doing that. You're not responsible for that either. Life is, and that's why you get to relax. The whole universe has got that bit covered. You don't need to do anything about it. But you keep fighting for control
Right.
within that. There is an element within that whole experience which thinks it is separate and is fighting for control and believes itself to be responsible for everything. The identification, the identity, which is only taking place in the brain. Which is why the way of, if we say there's a shift from operating as that brain, thinking you are that brain, to suddenly operating as the whole of life, which is operating in a body with a brain. And that process is still going on inside the brain. there is, let's just say there is a shift, if you want to call it a moment in time where that shift happens. If you spend every waking moment of your day watching, you are in the place where the shift happens. In fact, that is the shift. To watch a thing means to be observer of it, to be over here watching it. At which point, if it is seen that the whole experience is one, which includes everyone, all of the one, then you're not on your own. You've never been on your own. You've been suffering with every other atom in the universe, along with, and it's totally normal and perfect. And in that realization, there is if you want to put it into words, there is a breaking through from the individual sufferer into the body of the energy of life, the energy that's everywhere in life, which is breathing and alive. And you are that, and I am that, and we are all that. And if that rules your society, none of this bullshit would be happening. And when I say that, that's very tricky, because that is what is responsible for all of life. However, it gets very tricky with the language here, because the language almost stretches to a point. You're trying to talk about things that are immaterial, but you're using a physical mechanism to describe and encounter immaterial things. The energy of life is present here on Earth. It always has been. But it goes through various transformations. You could call it various stages of evolution in time. There are many beings here still who are operating in a more primitive, unevolved state. That is the cause of this warfare and warmongering and fear. But as consciousness life here evolves, pockets of life begin to elevate and wake up from that dream. Those are the people we call truth seekers, or those who become realized. For them, war is dead, absolutely dead. The cause of war is absolutely dead. They have removed all of their stock. There is no investment in that cause of war. Zero. And in fact, they have nothing more to say for themselves. They have no concerns. But the world of humanity keeps on turning in chaos, it would seem. So for those who are looking for the way out, the way out is within their own evolution, their own elevation. And so then what is that? As we've described, the method of awakening, which is mysticism, which is the message, the heart, the banner, the torch of mysticism. Mysticism passes that information along, that education, that energy is transmitted. And so life awakens via the process of mysticism, which is what you do when you want to wake up. Okay, so that's what's going on. That's what you're seeing everywhere. The insanity, the grasping of insanity by insanity itself. The forever grasping at illusion and problem and desire for control and greed for resources and manipulation and abuse of resources and abuse of positions of power and a desire for more power and a desire for more sustained power and access to more resources that can ensure that power for their children to be passed. It's a never-ending process of the identity that is in life, which is not really what you are. Which is why most commonly throughout the ages, when it comes to those who are mystically inclined, they have been, for the most part, not in totality, but for the most part, have been encouraged to leave the world behind.
Right.
To give you a bit of a break, you know. You're in a toxic, poisonous gas chamber. and you're being slowly suffocated by your leaders. All right? Get out. But the problem is, some people can't get out. Can't get out because of circumstance or attachment or responsibility, or the curious question of, can you do it without leaving society?
Yeah.
That's a different question altogether. Well, the fact of the matter is, there is no society. So yes, no matter where you are, if you can operate in a specific way, you are the same thing, always, everywhere, no matter what. If you had enough strength and determination, fortitude, motivation to attain the goal, nothing in this universe could stop you. Nothing. And that's a fact. People get worried that you can't become enlightened if your pineal gland is calcified. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I deal with like the
Cosmic reality
self-doubt.
confined to a walnut-sized cell? No, not a fact. The atoms that calcification of your pineal gland is made of, if you zoom into them, they're not actually touching, they're not actually solid. The pineal gland isn't really a solid object. You're in the space that surrounds the atom, and you're worried you're stuck inside a pineal gland. Anyway, not you. But that's a thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a thing.
So of course, wherever you are you present? Absolutely present. To the point where you have no perception of self. No perception of yourself or another self or a being of any kind. Nobody here. Nobody to save. Nobody to help. Nobody suffering. Neither you nor anyone else. No sufferer. Never has been a sufferer, never will be a sufferer. If you can operate within that space, you don't need this answer. If you could operate in that way, you would not need this answer. Because there would be nothing said. There would not need to be anything said. So then how do you access that space? Meditate. Learn to watch deeply, in total presence, and forge the level of focus that is required to sustain and continue to return to presence. If you find yourself getting carried away by the thinking, the identity of the thought, once again, immediately abandon it. There's an old saying like if you catch yourself thinking or caught up in thinking, and you think you have fallen into thinking, the second that you identify, cast those thoughts off like smelly old socks. Abandon them, incinerate them. And then once again, redirect one's focus and attention into immediate presence. And be sustained there. That mode of operation is sustained via non-grasping. What could be called non-grasping. You don't grasp at a single immediate experience of life, whether that's a sound or thought or a breath or a sensation of any kind, no perception whatsoever. If you can follow that, it will lead you into the heart of life itself, at which point there is no individual, there is no one, there is no other, there is nothing. But you can't even say there is nothing, which is where words fall apart, words break down, the way into enlightenment. So that's for those serious seekers who may find themselves a little bit caught up in things, stumbling a little bit in a good way, in a totally normal and acceptable way. Fine, it's what it is. So what do you say to the world? What do you want to say to the world? What do you want to say to the people watching these videos? Or what do you want to be said? What do you want to talk about?
big question. What do you want to say to the world? My immediate thought is just to keep going regardless. I think you said that to me the other day, like all of these stresses and pressures and expectations arise, especially when you're trying to do this while still living, I guess, on the outskirts of society a little bit. You just got to keep going regardless. You can't give up. It's not easy, but it's worth it.
Well, this was a quick video. Oh wait, 42 minutes. Maybe not so quick.
Not that quick.
Anything else you want to go into?
Well, if we're talking about people who have kind of like one foot in society but also have one foot out, who are trying to detach more and find more peace and have a less stressful life.
Let society die.
How does one find balance with that?
Balance.
Society.
Let it die.
Let it die. Let it crumble.
What is your society? What is your society? Well, I'll give you a bit of a taste of my society.
Okay.
I have no idea what's happening here. I don't know what any of this means. It's what society? If you want to get immediately descriptive of present example, we say, okay, this body is here breathing, sitting at this bench. There is a sensation of the bench pressing up against the arms and the rest of the body connected to the bench. The feet are on the floor. There is what we call earth beneath the feet, whole earth, vibrating, roaring and twisting and turning through space, literally. On that earth here, this is not conceptual, I'm talking about present experience. The consistency of the breath is open, fluid, fresh, cool. And there are 1,000 other things that could be described just immediately in this society. Why get so caught up on the insanity of a few monkeys? What society? Why try to control insane people? This cool, refreshing breath has nothing to do with them. As a fact. And the whole of that life, twisting and turning, is of no concern of mine. Nothing to be concerned about. What is the body doing presently? I live in the earth, with the earth. If I am here and you want to have a conversation with someone, I'm in the earth. Twisting and turning through space. In the sunlight. And it doesn't end there. What's planet Earth smack bang in the middle of? Solar system. right here, brother and sister planet, next door neighbors, ancestors. You want to call it alien, extraterrestrial. I'm in the domain of the ET, living in the body of the earth. This insanity that people are caught up in is just that. It is the result of insanity, pure control, the mechanism once again of this illusory identity of a self here. If you can relinquish that identity which is one with all of that insanity and the result of it and the cause of it simultaneously, if you relinquish that identity, what have you got to be bothered by or worried about? Whatever is going on here is the evolution of consciousness. People want to worry about aliens. That's like being afraid of your own family, your own friends, your own reflection. You'd have to be insane to fear your own reflection. And so the warmongering and the power grabbing and the control and the media that's serving that, sustaining it, is all the same story of insanity. And you're allowed to be entertained by it and fascinated by it as you watch it from a distance. Let that society die. They seem hell-bent on destruction.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you want to... Let them go.
Let them destroy themselves.
What does it matter? I have no intention to destroy anyone. My experience is pure love now these days. This body and this connection and this intimacy is just love. What do you want to go to war for? And as we've spoken about previously, we can't go to war with the insanity because it feeds the fear that they experience, those people who are stuck there. They're terrified of their neighbour. And now you want to come along and say, thou shalt not. You just encourage the fear. If you're meeting suffering beings, care for them, love them, help their dreams improve if you can. And if they are hell-bent on destruction, running towards it at 1,000 miles an hour, let them go. There's nothing to fear happening here. There is no concern. If E.T. is here, he does not want to hurt you. He is you. He is just merely a more, you could say, more advanced, evolved, further along the way version of yourself. Do you not want to grow together and learn together? Of course you do, because you're not crazy. So we get so caught up. Why do we get caught up? Because this insanity sells and makes money. So it's all over the place and it's pushed. Big bucks for someone. Some few. Same old world of profit and greed and abuse of resources. Well, okay, that's whatever. It's not my world. My teacher had a saying, not my monkeys, not my circus. That's it.
I'm just not involved.
So where does that leave you? Are you prepared to be alone and be independent from that? Are you prepared to learn how to observe it from afar? Are you prepared to learn how to identify within one's own experience very many deep mechanisms of consciousness? Are you prepared to inquire into altered states and mystical states and deep mind, deep meditation? If you are, get to work, practice. The more sincerely you dedicate it, the more sincerely you are dedicated, and the more sincerely you dedicate yourself to these practices, the more insight you develop. And insight, not in the sense of knowledge, although knowledge of self and the nature of things does obviously materialize. I forget what I said. What did I say? The mechanism or something? Okay, so one learns to live and be here in a very different way. And that ability awakens in you, along with self-knowledge and knowledge of the nature of life, because that is what you awaken to, literally. The very life that you are, living everywhere, which is all of history, all of humanity, all of Earth, all of life. That is really what you are. So, we learn to get out of the head.
How relaxing.
Daily. And yes, a lot of relaxation happens there. So wherever you are, no matter where you are actually, if you are committed to learning to operate outside of your thought for long enough, that doesn't mean stop thinking happening. It means learn to be present with everything that is not just thought, your thinking, your psychology. All the time, thinking, the brain is, right. And yet all the time, so is the earth spinning and life happening. Why aren't you in that? Very much. Because you don't know how to be that, or to be in that. One keeps getting caught up in the perception of one's own experience, which leads to the arising of so-called self-identity in the brain. So you learn to operate in a way where that perception is abandoned, and that sense of self is abandoned, and in that, the illusion of that self dissolves, and all that is left is the awakened energy of life in its place, which has always been here. And there's nothing more to be said about that problem from your point of view, unless somebody else is asking a question or somebody else has a problem. Or you encounter suffering, because you know that suffering is the result of that illusory process. And there is a way out. Every mystic, every one who has come into contact with reality and truth has taught, spoken about the same thing. Or rather, introduced people to that fact. The fact that was already there to begin with. And so, of course, because one exists in a space of love, very much so, tremendous peace, the very nature of that love is one in which it is shared. And that sharing of that love, which is done through speaking sometimes, settles down the suffering and encourages love to awaken over here too. Natural, beautiful process. And so life is very simple, really. You want to walk, you want to laugh, you want to swim, you want to work out, feel good physically, you want to care for the body, you want to care for each other, you want to eat well, you want to inquire into peace, you want to relax, more than anything, you want to relax. And that's it. So, what tends to happen in these encounters is a reconfirmation, a reawakening, a recommitment, a reignition of your own motivation for this way.
Always.
That's what happens in these talks. So they're very useful. So they serve that function. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you wanted to address specifically? Let me also ask. I was trying to say earlier that, do you have a grasp of this? This is the priority. There is this fundamental flaw in the operation of ego identified with body and brain, and the way of mysticism is to awaken to that via the process of watching, deep meditation, presence. If you're to grips with that, and you feel like you're making progress, and you are awakening, and you will know for a fact you are awakening because one's experience of life deepens. You suddenly see things you never even known were there. You gain abilities you never knew you had. You have weird experiences which are incredible and wonderful, and it's all gravy, and it's great, and you keep going with it. All right, that's in place. you're pretty free now, even at that level. Okay, you may not yet fully understand the role, but even at that level, you have begun to assimilate with the process of awakening consciously, and you know it.
Yeah.
All right, you're becoming free. You can relax a bit now. A fair bit of pressure, if you want to say, gets put on you. The gentle, right kind of pressure to get to grips with this first. That's important. All right, you're sinking into it now. Okay, so you can start to have a lot of fun there. You can start to play a little bit. There's great confidence that you're going to progress and you're going to proceed because you've demonstrated that you're proceeding and making progress. And so you just sustain what you've been doing and you will continue the same way. All right, wonderful. You get to relax now. You can play around with a little bit, projects, lifestyle, hypnosis, self-hypnosis, self-mastery, kung fu, different styles, different experiences, because you're continually chipping away at this deeper problem. And so you can communicate with people, offer services, and we talk a lot about, and we do offer services to people in exchange to support our life and help finance us essentially at this point. You can get involved with that. You've got goals and projects and things that you want to attain to. You're still the whole time in the background looking deeply to address this problem of wrong identification with the brain. You're learning to stay out of your head very sincerely. And so, people think seemingly, what are you saying? I've just got to sit in a room and not engage with life and not get involved with anyone and not be involved with people. It's not that at all. It's not running away from society, but it's learning to take a step back from the operation of what's going on here, the chaos and insanity. Stop involving yourself in it so much and come back to a simpler, more connected lifestyle. How often are you in the earth, in nature, immediately present with life? How often do you do physical exercise? How often do you do energy cultivation like chi work, for example, or a style of yoga? How often do you sit and watch a movie that's really wonderful and beautiful and fun, and it's not chaos and it's not insanity and it's not reminding you of everything that's wrong with the world, all this drama? There is a lifestyle to be cultivated which will help and facilitate your awakening, your detachment from the self-identity. And that lifestyle is more intimately connected with the rest of humanity. And that's where there's like a crossover, a bridge, if you want to call it a bridge, between you and everyone else and the whole world in its state of chaos. There is a bridge there, and it is lifestyle. What are people doing on a daily basis? Are they fearful? Are they terrified? Are they following the instructions of corrupt governments and health systems and greedy conglomerates and corporations? That's not a wise lifestyle. Do you spend a lot of time outdoors? Do you eat well? Do you share? Do you know much about love and intimacy and relaxation in somebody else's company? Do you have loving experiences with your children, etc., etc.? These are all lifestyle questions. Nothing to do with the wrong identity, the problem of disidentifying and detaching. That's like a level deeper inward.
But they go kind of hand in hand. You can have one.
Absolutely, that's the thing. You cultivate it wherever you are in the world. Present, in life. With your boyfriend, with your husband, with your children, with your boss, with your workmates. Now don't be naive. Some of these environments are wholly, solely dedicated to profit. They will not serve you. They will serve the GDP. That is their god. What is it? Global growth fucking thing? Anyway.
I don't know, I didn't know that GDP.
Is the GDP the debt thing? Or I don't know. They're all in line. They're all in cahoots. What I was referring to is the profit margin of the system. There are certain environments where all of the people who operate in those environments are wholly and solely dedicated to, in service of, the growth of the profit margin. Fuck those people. Don't
greedy, slimy.
You won't do well trying to cultivate in those environments for the most part. You really won't. A quick reason for that is nature has its own rhythm, and it's very gentle. For the most part, it's very slow. It's tremendously peaceful. It's full of lots of space. It's full of lots of bliss and energy. And it's very quiet. That space within you, which is nature itself, it's very quiet. It's very free of concerns. But in those other environments that we're making an example of, they're like this. Come on now, quick, 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 quick. Hurry up. Have you done that? Do this. Have you done this? Do that. Okay, well done. I like the way you did that. But if you can just squeeze that a little bit more next time, I would be happier with you. Alrighty. Well, okay, so we had a phone call.
Brief interruption.
And same old story, same old problem, same old thing going on, isn't it? Same old process, ultimately.
Yeah.
Different expressions of the world and society and current events, but still same old reality.
Yeah.
Life unfolding. And how well do you know it? The life that's unfolding. What perspective on it do you have? Do you have the perspective only of being caught up in the shit? Or do you have this perspective of being caught up in the shit while simultaneously watching everything from above the top of the mountain, looking down on life from above? Are you simultaneously in the shit but also everywhere? And if not, then that's the truth to be acknowledged, to be, you want to say, discovered, uncovered. And then, okay, so how do we reach that point? The process of mysticism, we have explained it multiple times.
Yeah.
Meditation, the ongoing, immediate process of watching in present awareness, as present awareness. All right, so if that's established in a person's life, yeah, you can talk about other interesting, strange things if you want.
The happening.
Do you want to know how and why the government does what it does to control the population? Do you want to know the specific names of the organizations and the families, the bloodlines that are orchestrating the warmongering? Do you want to go that way with the conversation? Is that what you want to talk about, to put specific emphasis on those elements of the human experience? Do you want to explore the alternatives and what you do and how do you disconnect? Where do you want to go with it? Do you want to talk about the drones and the UAPs and the UFOs and what that could be and the hypothesis of it all? Where do you want to go?
Well,
Anywhere? Or do you want to let it settle into not getting too caught up in all the details, which is stressful and tends to lead to conflict, because it's almost like blame. Yeah? Do we want to blame the government for being so idiotic? Do we want to blame the politicians for being so blind and greedy? Is that the way we want to go with our operation right now in our thinking and communication?
no.
Or do we want to focus on and stay in service of relaxation and not being caught up in all that shit, but instead being free of it? Because if you want to be free of it, you have to be very careful about diving too much into it. Because it can be all consuming.
Yeah.
And it tends to lead to frustration
And stress.
and stress.
Yeah.
Right, same thing. So if we're talking about relaxation, it's a very practical conversation to be had. How long in a day do you spend just breathing? Not entertaining a single fear or anxiety or concern with life. And I'm not saying you have to do it every day, 24 hours a day, and become a monk, hermit, mystic, yogi, master, watcher, you know. When was the last time you took a break from all of the happenings and spent a week on retreat, breathing, yoga, stretching the body, showering in cold, fresh water outdoors, walking back and forth for the simple experience of walking in an unconcerned way. Can you even do that? If you set your mind to a
Yeah.
week, are you able to? Or is your conditioning so aggressive, so attached, so fearful that it doesn't even let you put the world down? I hope not. I hope you're able to put it down and detach and dissolve into the trees and the grass and the earth and the wind. Because that's where you really are, you know. That's where your freedom is. Can you sink into that relaxation, sustained? Can you let every thought dissolve like a sugar cube in a glass of warm water? Just melts. Can you pay attention to the body long enough to keep identifying points of tension that are trying to hold on? And when you witness it, when you identify it, release it. Unburden the body. Right. Melt. Can you melt yet?
Learning.
Can you dedicate to melting for a whole week? Just a week. Take a break, man. Take a break. Have a Kit Kat.
Or a piece of fruit.
Have a peace of mind. Have a peace of mind. Have a peace of pure mind. Have a pure mind at peace. Can you do it? Because to be involved in the insanity is to be stressful and to be stressed. You have insanity in your head, which the task is to, let's say, remedy the relationship that you have with that insanity, the one just inside the head. That's a task in and of itself. Getting caught up in the chaos of the world and society too much could potentially distract you from this deeper task that you have. If there is a poison and you are feeding yourself a poison and you come to identify it as poison, do you want to keep feeding it? Do you want to throw it away and get as far away from it as you can? It's poison. Okay, that's it. However, I knew a monk, I still know him, I haven't spoken to him for a long time, who trained himself to be able to withstand poison. Warrior monk. Why? To help. Can you walk into these environments full of poison and help? Well, you can't if you can't withstand poison.
Right.
So you want to consider these poisonous principles and poisonous environments and discuss them for the sake of other people's benefit. All right, then what do you want to talk about? Or is that enough? Enough for now, and we can pick up the conversation another time if you still want to. And if other people want to get involved and talk or ask questions and make points or anything. Okay.
Yeah, I think we leave it at that and then pick it up another time, I guess.
Alrighty, then that's it. Have a wonderful day.
Goodbye for now.